Hi everyone, welcome to a Professor Myers Talk. I'm Jenna Zoyak, and today I will be talking about the good leadership qualities that Joseph displayed throughout his story in the Bible. Joseph's story begins in Genesis 37 in the Old Testament. At this time, Joseph was 17 years old, living in Israel with his parents and 11 brothers. Joseph's father loved him a little more than he loved his other sons, and Joseph's brothers were very jealous of him and hated Joseph for it. One day, since they hated him so much, they actually plotted to kill him, but instead they decided to sell him into slavery, and Joseph was taken into Egypt. There in Egypt, he was resold to the Pharaoh. Now, in this position, working for the Pharaoh, this was his first leadership position, and this wasn't an ideal situation. However, he had so much faith and hope in the Lord, and the Lord was right by his side the whole time, that he prospered. He was very successful in his work, that the Pharaoh actually entrusted him all of the responsibilities in the household, that the Pharaoh didn't even think about any of them because he knew and wasn't concerned with any of the jobs that were being done in the house because he knew that Joseph was so successful. Unfortunately, something happened with the Pharaoh's wife. She was trying to sleep with Joseph, and he kept refusing and refusing and refusing. He kept rejecting her, and one day she was fed up with him rejecting her, even though it would be wrong, but she wanted to sleep with him, so she decided to make up a lie, and she told her husband, the Pharaoh, that Joseph was trying to sleep with her. And so the Pharaoh believed his wife, and he was so angered and threw Joseph into prison. Now, at prison, Joseph was actually entrusted in many of the responsibilities throughout the prison. And again, he had faith and hope, and the Lord was with him and helped him be successful throughout his whole time in the prison. He was actually the top worker in the prison, and he did so well that nobody in the prison actually was concerned with what he was doing because they knew that all the responsibilities were in good hands, and they didn't even have to worry about it because he was so successful. So after 2 years, Joseph was still in the prison. He was in his leadership position. Of course, it wasn't an ideal situation because he's in prison for a lie, but he made the best of it, and of course was always faithful in the Lord. And so this was 2 years later. 2 workers from the Pharaoh, the cupbearer and the baker, actually were thrown into prison from the Pharaoh because they offended him. And Joseph met them. They knew that they had worked together, and he was kind to them, empathetic for them. And one night, the cupbearer and the baker had one dream each, and that was very, very odd to them, and they didn't know what they meant. Through the Lord, Joseph could actually interpret dreams, exactly what they are meant. And so Joseph told the cupbearer that his dream meant that in 3 days, his position with the Pharaoh would be restored, and he would be out of prison, and he would be working for the Pharaoh again. And Joseph told the cupbearer to not forget him when this happens. The baker's dream Joseph interpreted as in 3 days, the Pharaoh would impale him with a pole, killing him, and the birds in the field would feast off his flesh. So after 3 days, both of those things exactly happened, and the cupbearer was back working with the Pharaoh out of prison, and the baker was dead. And unfortunately, though, the cupbearer actually forgot about Joseph. So after a while, the Pharaoh actually had 2 dreams in one night that he didn't know what they meant. And so he called upon all the magicians and wise men of all of Egypt, and nobody could tell the Pharaoh what his 2 dreams meant until finally the cupbearer remembered Joseph and told the Pharaoh, the guy that used to work for you that you threw in prison can interpret dreams correctly. What he told us exactly what happened with myself and the baker. So you should call upon him to interpret your dreams. The Pharaoh took the suggestion and brought Joseph to him, and Joseph interpreted his dreams as for 7 years there will be great abundance of food, endless supply of food. Everyone will be fed. And after that there will be 7 years of famine. Now, this actually happened, and to prepare for it, the Pharaoh actually entrusted Joseph again in a great leadership position of saving the whole world and saving everyone's lives in the whole world, actually, not just Egypt, from the famine. And he actually used strategic leadership to strategize and figure out how much crop he should save throughout the 7 years of great abundance to prepare for the 7 years of famine. And Joseph did this so well and excelled in this that he actually had more than enough food. And everyone throughout the world was actually coming to him. Like I said, it wasn't just Egypt for the famine. It actually was people throughout the world that were coming to get the food from Joseph. He saved so many lives, and no one went hungry because he did a great job in his leadership position to plan for the famine. And since the whole world was actually coming to Egypt to see Joseph, to get food from him, his brothers actually came, and they didn't recognize him. Joseph recognized them, and he eventually told them, "I'm your brother that you sold," and stuff. But Joseph's father was actually dying at this time, and he actually met up with Joseph after all these years. Joseph's father actually thought he was dead, and he told him to forgive his brothers for their wrongdoings against him, to have forgiveness in his heart, and Joseph did that. And so this is a great story of the perseverance and the resilience that Joseph had throughout all of his trials, because even though he went through such hardships and his situations were not ideal, he still kept being a great leader, and he kept faith and hope in the Lord, who helped him be successful. And that's important as a leader, to always keep faith and hope in the Lord, because imagine if Joseph hadn't had faith, would he have been successful in his leadership positions? Would he have been able to save the whole world from the famine? Probably not. So that's very important as a leader, to have perseverance and to have resilience. And also in his strategic leadership was very important to strategize and plan out and organize how much food he had to store to prepare for the famine. And that was very important as well. So this is a great story to learn about and to use this as an example of being a leader, that you should implement different types of leadership qualities, and Joseph displayed quite a few, in that he was faithful, he was resilient, and that he was a good strategist, which in turn saved the whole world. So that is my Professor Myers talk for today. Everyone, please remember to be faithful in the Lord, to have hope, and to be resilient, and to also be minded and be able to focus on your work so that you can lead others and help others. Thank you. That's all for today. Thank you, and have a great night.